Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with the Spain News Update. And Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has sent a strong message to Russian leader Vladimir Putin, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation or by buying me a beer or a coffee. Many thanks for that. Thanks to the people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your continuing support. Now, let's get into the news. And Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez yesterday travelled to the Baltic republics and had some strong words for Vladimir Putin. And as we can see here, Sanchez reaffirms his commitment to NATO and warns Putin, "We are stronger and more united than ever." The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez travelled to Latvia to visit a NATO base in Adazi with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg and the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. He then visited Spanish troops deployed in Latvia 120 kilometres from the Russian border, a trip with which the head of the Spanish government aims to demonstrate his commitment to NATO and to the Baltic republics after changing his mind about sending arms to Ukraine just a week ago. From Latvia, Sanchez wanted to underline his unwavering commitment to Ukraine and has sent a clear message to the Russian President, Vladimir Putin. "We NATO allies are united and the transatlantic link is stronger than ever," he said at a press conference with Stoltenberg, Trudeau and the Latvian Prime Minister. So a strong and clear message sent yesterday by Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez to Vladimir Putin that NATO is more united than ever. So take that, Mr. Putin. Now, the Spanish government yesterday sent a positive message to all Ukrainians who are living in Spain currently illegally, and it is that the government will regularize the situation of Ukrainians in an irregular situation in Spain. The government will immediately grant residence and work permits, health, education, accommodation and financial support to Ukrainians who are in an irregular situation in Spain. The Council of Ministers has approved an agreement this Tuesday that includes these citizens within the group that will be able to benefit from the Temporary Automatic Protection Directive of 2001, which the EU Council of Interior Ministers decided to activate for the first time last Thursday. At that time, very general terms were agreed upon to satisfy all the countries, according to sources from the Spanish Interior Ministry. So some positive news there for Ukrainian people that are living in Spain currently in an irregular situation, as residence and work permits will be granted immediately. Now, the wholesale price of electricity yesterday reached record highs, but today it's down a bit. As we can see here, the price of electricity falls on Wednesday to €473 per megawatt hour, but marks its second all-time high. The price of electricity on the wholesale market will reach an average of €472.97 per megawatt hour on Wednesday, which represents a decrease of €72 compared to Tuesday, when it averaged €545 per megawatt hour. Despite this slight drop, its price remains at record highs as tension in the markets increases due to the war in Ukraine. Its maximum will reach €605 per megawatt hour, while the minimum will be €356.74 megawatt hour. So tough times ahead for many people in this country as electricity prices continue to soar. And it's going to be interesting to see what the government has up its sleeve this time round to help consumers with these increases. Or is there nothing left that they can do? Time will tell. Now, I mentioned in yesterday's video that former Spanish King Juan Carlos I is going to set up permanent residence in Abu Dhabi, deciding not to come back to Spain and live, but he wants to be able to visit Spain whenever he wants. However, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez came out yesterday and insisted that former King Juan Carlos I must give explanations. "What we know now about him is just not acceptable," he said. The president of the government, Pedro Sanchez, has insisted that King Juan Carlos I must give explanations about his finances despite the closure of the investigation by the Public Prosecutor's Office and after the letter sent by the monarch to his son Felipe VI about the possibility of travelling to Spain in the near future. "I still believe that he has to give an explanation," he said, "because the information that we have been hearing about the emeritus king is not acceptable." So Prime Minister Sanchez insisting that former King Juan Carlos I must give the Spanish people an explanation. Where did all that money come from? Why didn't he declare it back in the day? And why didn't he make his business dealings transparent? Those are some of the questions that a lot of people want to know. Now, if you are living here in Spain, you would have realized already that we are in the middle of a severe drought, and reservoirs around the country have fallen to levels of the Great Drought of the 1990s. The rains of the last few days have not resolved the complicated situation of water reserves in most of mainland Spain. The reservoirs as a whole are at 43.9%, and one has to go back to 1995 to find such a low percentage in the 10th week of the year, according to historical data from the Ministry for Ecological Transition. In the last 34 years, only on 3 occasions has the reservoir in the same week been lower. In 1995, 43.5%, in 1993, 40.8%, and in 1992, 40.4%. So things not looking good as far as water reserves go in Spain in 2022. Now yesterday, the 8th of March, was International Women's Day, and yesterday Women's Day exploded onto the streets in Spain in the wake of the pandemic, and despite a divided women's movement. The feminist movement was eager to take to the streets again after the reclusion forced by the pandemic, and so it did this Tuesday, another 8th of March, to remember, with dozens of mass demonstrations all over Spain, overcoming the litmus test imposed by the divisions within the movement, which led to the call for separate marches in numerous cities. So International Women's Day exploding onto Spanish streets yesterday, despite, as we saw in that text, divisions within the collective between some of the moderate feminists in this country and some of the more hardcore feminists. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain, and we can see the accumulated incidence rate now down to 435. Hospital pressure remains low at 4.3%, and ICU pressure also low at 8.5%. However, COVID-related deaths remain a problem, with 285 reported yesterday by the government. Now, there was some bad news yesterday for the political party Vox and their use of Twitter, because as we can see, Spain's Supreme Court has backed far-right party Twitter ban. Spain's Supreme Court ruled on Tuesday that Twitter's temporary suspension of the far-right Vox party's account last year after it posted anti-immigrant messages was reasonable and proportional. Twitter banned Vox from posting for 8 days last January after the party tweeted that immigrants of Maghrebi origin were responsible for the vast majority of crimes committed in the Catalonia region shortly before local elections were held. The social media giant said the post incited hatred against the immigrant community. Vox, which has campaigned against immigration and feminism and targeted LGBT people and other minorities, appealed the ban to the Spanish Electoral Board, which found in favour of Twitter. So Vox getting banned on Twitter last year for 8 days because of hate speech. But never mind about that, because they're becoming more and more popular here in Spain as the years go by. Why? I've got absolutely no idea. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Simon: maybe going for solar panels is a good idea. What do you think? Yes, Simon, thanks for the comment, and absolutely going for solar panels seems like a good idea at the moment, especially given the price of electricity. And in a place like Spain, where the majority of the country gets a lot of sunshine, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer. And as I have mentioned on various occasions over the last few months, there are numerous town halls around Spain at the moment that will give you a subsidy if you whack them up on the roof. One here from Enrique: Stu, you have one of the few impartial views of Spanish politics. Thanks. Enrique, thanks for the comment, and I do try to be impartial when I speak about politics here in Spain. I like to get stuck into the right, and I like to get stuck into the left. I've had my critics over the years telling me to take a side, but politics is not football, and basically all I'm asking for is good government and good governance, and I don't care if it comes from the right or from the left, but it seems that it's almost impossible. One here from Simon: the issue with Russian nuclear threats is that only the UK and France have nuclear capability in Europe, so would they be more likely or less likely targets in the beginning? Who knows? Yes, Simon, thanks for the comment, and you're right, only 2 countries in Western Europe have nuclear capability: France and the United Kingdom. Spain has nuclear power plants, but they don't have nuclear weapons. And would the 2 countries that you mentioned there, France and the UK, be the first targets hit if a nuclear war were to break out? I don't know, but I hope it never happens. One here from Ed: Australia did get nuked in the Cold War, but by the Poms, who were testing their nukes. Yeah, thanks for the comment, and again, totally correct. Australia did get nuked back in the 1950s by the Poms, or the English, I should say. The bombs were exploded in a place called Maralinga, I believe, which is in South Australia. So a lot of people in Australia not happy that the country was used as a nuclear test site by the English, and the French used the South Pacific as their nuclear testing ground So what was up with the Southern Hemisphere? One here from Samagal. Stuart, what about your neighbourhood for a family with kids? Would you recommend it? Were you considering where to live in Madrid? I'm from Argentina. Cheers and thanks. Yes, Samagal, thanks for the comment. And yes, I would recommend this part of Madrid and this particular city to bring up kids. In fact, a lot of families over the last 20 years or so have decided that this is the place that they want their kids to grow up. Lots of open spaces, not too far from the capital city, and plenty of things for kids to do. One here from Elaine. Do you live in a large city? What is the population? It seems like it took a long time to get from one side of your city to do the chores. You need the Gas Buddy app we have here in the States. I use it to find the gas station nearest to my house with the cheapest gas. As of today, it's $4.07 a gallon here in New Jersey. Elaine, thanks for the comment. And no, it's not a large city. It's about 2 kilometers wide and about 5 kilometers long and just under 100,000 people. But the infrastructure is not very good, and it takes about 15 or 16 minutes to get from where I am to where I went yesterday. And when it comes to fuel apps, I do have one similar to the one that you mentioned there, but it's not called Gas Buddy, it's called Gas All, and it also tells me where the cheapest fuel stations are according to where I am. So very handy to have one of these apps on your phone. And finally, one here from Desert Preacher. The only good news this year is that it's finally raining. Yeah, Desert Preacher, thanks for the comment, and you're right, the news has been a little bit negative this year, and in fact, over the last couple of years, the news has been negative. Pandemic, inflation, war, and now we have a drought in Spain. But it has been raining, and that's some good news, but will it be enough? That's the question. On that note, I'll wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the video out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.